Welcome to Fit to Speak from the Archives. I'm Eugene, Obah, glad as ever to be with you. Like many of you, I popped the cork on the champagne from the comfort of my home on New Year's Eve that we reached the end of 2020, and it was thought that all would have been over with COVID, except not, and these days, with the newest booster available, we're learning to live with it. Today, we revisit our New Year's Eve conversation with Comissiong of the Nyumburu Cultural Center at the University of Maryland and president of the Black Faculty and Staff Association about the fall 2020 semester that was or wasn't, and the impact on Black students, along with some predictions for 2021. Did they come to pass? Do stay tuned to find out. Hello and welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us. Well, folks, we've mercifully reached the end of 2020 and college students are on winter vacation. But one thing that has not taken a break has been the novel coronavirus pandemic. Although with the rollout of the Pfizer vaccine and the recent approval of the Moderna vaccine, there does seem to be a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And across the majority of this year, many colleges and universities, including the University of Maryland, have made a flurry of decisions regarding how the college experience would work in the pandemic, much of which we have talked about on this program. So today, on our final show of 2020, I speak with Comissiong, the Assistant Director of Student Involvement and Public Relations at the Nyumburu Cultural Center at the University of Maryland, and the President of UMD's Black Faculty and Staff Association about his thoughts on those decisions, the impact on faculty, staff, and students, especially minorities, and what advice he has for students heading into the spring semester. It's a very candid interview, folks, so let's not waste any time and let's get right to it as we continue our conversation about college in the COVID era. And joining me now is Comissiong, Assistant Director of Student Involvement and Public Relations at the Nyumburu Cultural Center at the University of Maryland. He's also the president of UMD's Black Faculty and Staff Association. Solomon, welcome. It is great to have you on our program. And let's go ahead and get started. So I want to start off with the news that broke recently that the University of Maryland is now transitioning after Thanksgiving to a near entirely virtual model, with some exceptions. The cases of the novel coronavirus have gone up in the state of Maryland and especially in Prince George's County. Now, up until Thanksgiving, the university has been doing a hybrid model. The transition is now to virtual learning with, of course, a few exceptions. So the question is, what has been your sense on the ground to how students have been reacting to this change overall? And in thinking about the fall semester overall, how have folks been adapting and reacting to this new normal that we are in?
Well, it's been a huge adjustment. I mean, most people, even people in their 80s, this has been a huge adjustment for them because they haven't experienced a pandemic in their lifetime. I mean, it's been quite some time that we've seen a pandemic of this magnitude globally. And so, the adjustment and adaptation has been something that's been ongoing. I think the first few months were really touch and go. And as we've moved along with more information about, different precautions and things of that nature to protect oneself from spreading the virus, from contracting the virus in the first place, I think, a lot of people have been making those adjustments. Obviously, we have, people in our society who are not, taking those precautions as seriously as they should, and that's par for the course. We see that with, the smoking of cigarettes and things of that nature. So this is just another, one of those other things. But on campus, I haven't seen, students up close and personal for quite some time, going back to probably March, because most of my programs have moved virtually, have moved online. And so a lot of the work I do as assistant director for the Nyumburu Cultural Center is, on a weekly basis. I have a multitude of programs that I facilitate, and those have moved online. Now I've seen students virtually. And so, some of the students that I've met with, it's impacted them and their households financially. Early on, I've had some students, because they were working to help with their families' income. They had to claim unemployment because they had lost their jobs and things of that nature. I've heard some students say that they've been quite nervous, but students, in general, are pretty resilient and kind of have this feeling of like invincibility, for better or for worse. And so, a lot of the students have kind of, shed a lot of that fear with, more so like they're hoping that this thing ends, relatively soon. So there is trepidation, but I wouldn't say it's as high as on the faculty and staff side. We, Black Faculty and Staff Association, in conjunction with Nyumburu, have been holding a series of town halls, and they're all documented. They're all online for people who are not even affiliated with the university to watch and listen to those town halls. And within those town halls, there are people that have talked about a lot of fear and trepidation with the virus, the unknowns about the virus early on. You had a lot of folks that really were questioning the decision of the university when the university did make the decision to go to do this hybrid. Like, why do this when you have schools like Howard University and Georgetown? I'm naming schools that are very close proximity to the University of Maryland, just miles away. American University, George Washington, even up the road, further up the road, about 40, 45 minutes up the road, Johns Hopkins, who has been the supplier of a lot of data that's been going out about COVID in general, because of their strong reputation in medicine. And all these schools went virtual very early on. They went virtual. So, folks were wondering, including myself, were wondering what makes the University of Maryland so confident that, our populace on campus, our students, faculty, and staff are going to be immune to this. Why take the chance? Why take the chance? Why take the chance and do this hybrid? Why not just hunker down and say, hey, we're going to go virtual at the least until the beginning of second semester, where we're going to reassess things at that time and see. Especially this is a semester, the fall semester is one that you go right into the eye of the storm in regard to the flu season. Why do it? And so I'm one of those people that, I'm not the only one, but I'll go down on the record and say that I've really strongly questioned why the university would do this, why they would do this. And we know that since then there have been pocketed outbreaks on campus. There was a dormitory, I believe it was Denton Hall, that had to have like a quasi lockdown. It's not, to me, it's just not worth it. It doesn't outweigh, the financial gains. Yes, it stinks to have the university lose so much money and possibly impact, people's pocketbooks and potential furloughs and even layoffs. And no one wants to see that. But you know what? No one else wants to see that takes priority over that. No one wants to see, or no one should want to see, someone's life be lost. And once someone loses their life, if they lose their life to COVID, all right, because we have had members of our campus early on lose their life to COVID before the reopening. And once somebody loses their life, you can't bring them back, Eugene. You cannot bring them back. You can't say, oh, this is a mistake and I can bring them back. I don't think that the need to have that outweighs the risk. I think the risk greatly outweigh the desire and the need to reopen prematurely. And I do think it was premature.
So, Solomon, as you know, there have been, of course, pre-COVID, there have been a lot of inequalities, especially among Black students and other minorities in general, and especially lower income students. And there's been a lot of stuff that has been laid bare in my research on this. According to the Association of American Colleges and Universities, they were referencing another school. They were talking about the additional stresses. They were talking about internet at home being down, the library being closed, and some folks who prefer to learn in person. So my question is, in thinking about a lot of this, has there been anything on campus that you have noticed during this time that is of particular concern that the audience should know about?
Yeah, it's been well documented. And if you look at the work of the union on campus, AFSCME, 1070 has been doing phenomenal work, organizing around this. And in terms of trying to protect the interests of workers on campus, because from the beginning, they called it out, saying that this is, university is making decisions based on monetary rationale, looking at the dollars and cents, room and board that would be, at stake to be lost if we don't get these students on campus to a certain point. and things of that nature. So they've been negotiating and agitating, and the necessary agitation to try to bring some type of safety in this regard to workers on campus, because there's a lot of workers, janitorial staff, housekeepers, and so forth that are, I would say, quite frankly, on the front lines, because these students which are like young adults are apt not to make the wisest decisions. You can say, oh, we're testing everyone before they come on campus, where everybody was tested, including myself, who work on campus, and students had to be tested. But the test is only as good as the day that it was given. I mean, if the person goes out and goes to a party, on Route 1, or goes to a house party, or goes to a get together where there's several or many students that are in a room in a house, they could be exposed to that. And so that test that they took early that day or last week is now, basically rendered obsolete, because you don't know whether that person has been in contact and has contracted it unless you're testing on a daily basis. It's not like a real bubble that the NBA had, where they were being tested daily. They couldn't leave the bubble. They weren't allowing new people into the bubble, and until the playoffs. This is not the case. This is not the case at all. And so, if you're a housekeeper and your job, and you're a custodial staffer, and your job is to clean these dorms, you're constantly being exposed to a great number of students, and different types of pathogens that could be floating around into your daily contact at work, and then you have to bring that home. I mean, early on, we had a Haitian brother who contracted it and died. He had children, he had a wife, and he's no more, So these are the things that are of great concern to myself. It's a great concern to a lot of folks. I want to continue to give the union great credit, for the work that they've been doing. And then there's also a new organization on campus, BFSA. We've been holding town halls. It's been a big concern of ours. We have been out front of this from the get-go. And then there's a new association that is around, all faculty on campus. So I know it's a concern to faculty. I mean, in the faculty center early on, there was a vote, and I believe it was upwards of 75% of faculty on campus said that in this survey that they did not want to teach in person fall semester. 75% said they do not feel comfortable teaching in person this semester. And a lot of them stated the same, what the reasons were that I said about, housekeepers and custodial staff. Theirs was, we're going into these classrooms in a closed environment. We're not teaching outdoors on the mall. We're in these classrooms. Students who may have been out partying the week before, or may have been in contact with somebody that had COVID, and now we're in these classrooms full of 20, 30 students, or upwards of 100, 150 students at certain times. So, hybrid or not, let's talk about the time. So the hybrid, okay, online, that's great. But the other part of the hybrid is that in person. So it only takes one time for it to happen. And we know this thing could exponentially spiral out of control. So these are huge concerns of mine. They're huge concerns of other executive board members on BFSA. I know it's huge concerns of the union, and also because of the work that I do on campus, advocating on behalf of all of our constituents with Black Faculty Staff Association. I know that it's a huge concern with people who are often feel like they're voiceless and they feel like they're invisible, but they're the ones that beautify this campus. They're the ones that make the campus what it is, but they hardly get the credit. Those, the low wage, the people that are working low wages, and might I say right now, is that these people are making unlivable wages. I mean, so oftentimes they have to go from one job to another job, because we know within the United States of America, there's this huge gap of inequality between the haves and have-nots. And so it's bad enough that these people are making wages or earning wages that oftentimes are not enough for them to just be able to go home and be with their families. They have to go to other jobs. And that's bad enough as it is. But then on top of that, you're sending them into the belly of the beast, if you will, into these dorms, into these highly populated areas, dormitories, classrooms, to clean and to beautify this campus for what? To put themselves in the very midst of these crosshairs, while making wages that, quite frankly, are unacceptable.
Just to put it aside here, I saw two of the janitors of the student union a few years ago during my time at Maryland, and they were paying for their own parking.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
me, I think it's kind of unacceptable that, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, just so it shows the level of inequality and all of that between the haves, especially like needs and everything, and and the have-nots. So it's really a pity. Um, you touched on a lot of great resources earlier on, and I just want you to kind of go over that, if you can, with our viewers. I know Nyumburu is a very important building on campus. It's a home away from home, especially for a lot of the Black community, a lot of Black students. What resources has Nyumburu provided during this time, especially in terms of the virtual learning situation that many of the students face? I know you talked a lot about some of the resources that you have available, but give our viewers the kind of sort of the rundown about all of that.
Just wanted to touch on what you said about the parking. The parking, that is one of the most egregious things that I have seen on campus since I started working there, is that people pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year for parking. So you pay for parking at your place of employment. So you're going there and they can't even provide us free parking, for staff on campus. Hundreds of dollars. My parking that I pay is 600 plus almost $700 that I'm paying every year for parking. And that's me. But you have low wage workers on campus being paid in-livable wages. And if they drive to campus, they have to pay hundreds of dollars as well. I mean, it's broken up based on what you make, but they're still paying a few $100s a year to park on campus. And then if you don't park where they say you have to park, then you get tickets like $75 tickets here, $75 tickets there. And so I've seen people that I've worked with in 1 year amass hundreds of dollars of parking tickets in addition to what to what they're paying in parking per year. I've gotten $75 tickets here, $100 tickets. I mean, it is horrible. I mean, you almost have to laugh to keep from crying. It's awful. So your observation, it was quite resolute. It's on point. The Nyumburu Culture Center, we have transitioned and moved essentially all of our programs online. So there's a weekly program called Newsbreak that the associate director, Ms. Ann Reese Carswell, she helps to facilitate, and that's where students meet up every Wednesday at 11:50 to 12:50, and they talk about different current issues that are going on locally and nationally and globally. So that program is still going on, and that's been therapeutic for students because it's given them an outlet to express themselves about what's been going on campus. Even early on, there's a lot of trauma of being Black and living in America. There's a lot of stress that is burden. I mean, they've done lots and lots of psychological and medical studies on this, that Black people living in the United States of America become very stressed out. It causes a lot of stress on the body, cause a lot of stress on the mind. And so early on, when we had these high profile police killings that were going on, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery being chased by those white, so-called vigilantes, those things were very stressful. And so things like Newsbreak allow people to have a place to express and to vent. I run a program called NACP, the Nyumburu African Culture and Political Education Workshops. And what we do is we delve into Black history going back to antiquity Africa, thousands of years, all the way to present day. But we also talk about different, political issues of the day, nationally, locally, and internationally. And if that's been therapeutic for students, because I also provide them a media platform where they can actually produce, different segments online to kind of chop up and deconstruct, different things that are going on, provide commentary. We have a health initiative that I also oversee called the BMI Nyumburu Health Initiative, where before COVID, I was meeting up with students, and my student assistant. We would in-person high intensity workouts, and then we'd have discussions about what you should and shouldn't be eating, and also the most important thing, why it's important to eat more whole foods as opposed to processed foods, things of that nature. So we've continued to do that. My student assistant pre-recorded a lot of workouts from home and then then I uploaded the workouts that she did online so people could actually now work out from home, even though we couldn't meet in person. And then what I've continued to do is hold weekly health initiative workshops, educating students and staff about the importance of eating healthy, especially amid COVID, staying active in COVID, different workouts that you can do in your house, around your house, getting out, getting fresh air, going for long walks or a jog, things of that nature, so that people do not allow their immune systems to become even more compromised because they're now quarantined or staying at home or stressed out because we're living within a pandemic and things of that nature. So just providing people with resources so that they can try to keep some type of optimal health and also some mental strength as well, not allowing themselves to get too down, depressed. It's a difficult thing in and of itself, but we wanted to provide a support unit. So that's a program that continues to go on. We have a BMI program, so a Black Male Initiative program. We've been meeting since this started. All of our meetings have been online. So these are resources. Also, in general, our staff always has had an open door policy before COVID. And so Ms. Carswell, the Associate Director, Dr. Ronald Ziegler, the Director, myself, Andre Nottingham, India Ritchie, we have continued to provide resources for students, even though we're online now, where students can reach out to us, email us, set up appointments where we can talk to them on the phone if they need any kind of assistance, they need just to talk, those things of nature. So continue to be mentors to a lot of students. And I just want to say, we went through our own tragedy in Nyumburu. Back in June, we lost one of our full-time staffers, Mr. Aaron Rinmagru, who was a very good friend of mine, very good friend to the rest of the Nyumburu staff, young man in his 40s, and he just suddenly died. Matter of fact, he died.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we had a staff meeting. I appreciate it. We had a staff meeting that day, and then later on that evening, he died, and we found out the next morning, and it was horrible, and he just suddenly died, and it was unexpected. It wasn't like he was sick; it was just unexpected, and so that's something that we had to deal with. The students, a lot of students, really loved him a lot, and so they did a vigil at Nyumburu in the amphitheater, a socially distanced vigil outside in the amphitheater where folks came, and there was many students that came to show their love and appreciation for somebody who had been a mentor and a big brother to a lot of them. Some of them had graduated and they came, some of them drove hours, to attend this vigil. But, so we've been going through it, a lot. And at the same time, we're trying to continue to be that citadel for students, especially for all students, but especially for students of African ancestry to gravitate towards, because it's a population that has continually faced microaggressions. There have been reports on campus that the university has tried to stifle, reports that were commissioned by the former president, Wallace Lowe, and then Dr. Roger Worthington, who was the chief diversity officer on campus, for equity and inclusion. He went ahead and put together a survey that went out campus-wide. It was very extensive. But when the reports came back that showed that a lot of students of color on campus did not feel comfortable on campus and were really upset and stressed out because of the microaggressions they faced on campus, the university tried to stifle it. And that it ended up leading to Dr. Roger Worthington being forced out of his job, because he said, if you're not going to allow this report to be sunshineable, to be put out to the public so that we can learn from this, this is my job. You asked me to do this. I mean, and now you don't want to be put out now that you find the results are not what you thought they were going to be. And so if I can't do my job, I have to step down. And so he stepped down from his position because he felt that he was not able to do the job. And, it's all chronicled online. The Diamondback was there. There was a big town hall meeting, and Dr. Worthington showed up, at the BFSA meeting and to get the story straight. So, we're fighting the good fight and just trying to continue to be there for our students and the community in general.
As we head to the spring semester, what advice do you have for students that are navigating during this time? What should they be thinking about as the spring semester starts up in a few months?
I think that they, one of the things that advice I would give them is somebody who's been in their position, not in a pandemic, but, the younger you are, I think that the more invincible you feel that you are. And so I would just remind them that this is a very serious public health crisis, this, a global one at that, a pandemic, and to be vigilant about their healthcare and looking out for their best interest, and that sometimes entities around them may not be looking out for their best interest. So you have to be your primary advocate in regard to these things. And if you don't feel comfortable coming back to campus, you need to advocate. You need to let people know. You need to write the university. Let your voice be heard. Find ways to be able to express yourself, because ultimately you are the ones that are in enviable positions. You are the customers, the customers. You receive that degree at the end of your 4 or 5 years, but it's almost like a receipt. Great customers are the ones that make demands to these businesses, because these businesses will capitulate when their customers are saying, like, listen, I'm not going to buy from you if you don't start looking out for our best interests. I mean, just as one example, I mean, look, I know students who were living just off campus in these off campus, housing, these apartments that are up and down Route 1. And I know students that have not come back because they haven't felt comfortable and their parents haven't felt comfortable. They signed a lease way back before COVID started, back in February, and these housing entities, they will not allow them to get out of their leases. So I know some students whose parents are paying $1,200, $1,400 a month in rent for their student not to live there, because they don't feel comfortable with their son or daughter living in an apartment suite with 4 other people, 3 other people, and they have no control over those people. They're not living in a bubble. But these apartments just, they're like, no, we're gonna take that money. I mean, it's just, Eugene, it just reeks of all the trappings of a hyper-capitalist society that continues to put profits before people. And when you have that, the people lose out time and time again, until the people take a stand and speak out together in unison as a collective, saying no more, no more.
It's an extremely tough situation, and it's one that we certainly will be keeping an eye on, because reading about that, and I know that there's the group Concerned Tenants of UMD that have been very active about all of this. It is just something that is just a wild situation, and this and all of the other things that you're talking about is something that we are going to continue to focus on here at CSC Media. And I hope that we can have you on again, Solomon, at some point to further discuss these issues, because your insight is so invaluable. So, Solomon Comissiong, the Assistant Director of Student Involvement and Public Relations at the Nyumburu Cultural Center here at the University of Maryland, also the President of UMD's Black Faculty and Staff Association. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the great work that you're doing.
Well, there you have it, folks. That completed the first season of Fit to Speak that we originally launched on Vimeo, but that doesn't quite do it for this series. We've got 2 more editions for you before the regular edition of Fit to Speak returns in just a smidgen under 7 weeks right here on this YouTube channel. Next week, we'll continue the conversation we had with Masongo Agora about college in the COVID era. We did that on April Fool's Day of 2021. And then the following week in our finale, we'll revisit the special show that I did on March 4th, 2021, when the University of Maryland had to suddenly shut down due to an outbreak of COVID cases on campus. By the way, I'll also have a movie recommendation that could very well impact the outcome of the midterm elections this year, as well as the 2024 presidential elections. So be sure to join us over the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and be sure to check out our Substack and Patreon pages for exclusive content and to support all of the work we do here. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. Until next week, I'm Eugene Obah. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, the best things in life are worth saving.